Man, and we are back. Welcome back, you all, to Jump Off Live. Is it possible for Black activism to go too far? We're also going to discuss controversy regarding transgender folks competing in athletics. Um, it's going to get deep tonight. It's going to get deep tonight, folks. Again, welcome to another episode of Jump Off Live. I'm yours truly, Jeff A. Smith, joined by JD and Johnny Dangerous. As you're watching the show, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, you can check us out on Zingo TV, channels 249 and 250. And if you're on the go, you can find us on your favorite podcast streaming app. Fellas, I know the chat is, people are kind of slowly coming into the chat. I want to ask kind of really quickly, how you all doing this week?
Oh, I'm great, man. I'm great. I get so excited. I see our subscriber numbers going up,
Yeah.
views going up. We jumped over 1,000 views on one of our last episode, actually.
Mhm.
So it's amazing to see, man. So I just want to thank everybody out there for supporting us.
Most definitely. What about you, Johnny Dangerous?
Glad to be alive, man. Glad to be here on this lovely Wednesday night, getting over the hump. Glad to have all our viewers tapping in, and I know it's going to be some interesting topics talked about tonight, and very interesting comments from our fellow chatters. So,
Our
a lot going
chatterers.
on in the world. Our chatters. We're gonna hear a lot of chatter tonight, y'all. So, what's up, Jr. And what's up to everybody else in the chat, man? Let's get it in.
We need to find a name for the folks who support us. Like jumpers sounds kind of weird. I don't know what we need to call them, but we need to come up with a name for our Jump Off Live. Oh, I guess they're Team Jump Off, right? Is that
Yep. There you go.
that's what they call it. Okay. That works. All right, we'll dive right in. So this is courtesy of Yahoo News. Very interesting article here. Professor sues UCLA for suspension after allegedly not grading Black students more leniently. A professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, said he filed suit against the school system for suspending him as he faced backlash for not grading Black students more leniently in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. He says, and I quote, "Recently I was suspended from my job for refusing to treat my Black students as lesser than their non-Black peers." Gordon Klein, the professor behind the suit, said in an op-ed, 8 days after Floyd, a Black man, died in Minneapolis following a May 2020 arrest. A white student emailed Klein asking for a no harm final for Black students given the racially charged unjust murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, according to Klein. It's not a joint effort to get finals canceled for non-Black students, but rather an ask that you exercise compassion and leniency with Black students in our major, the email allegedly stated. The response to the students' patronizing email asked why Black students should be singled out, Klein said. Are there any students that may be of mixed parentage, such as a half Black, half Asian? What do you suggest I do with respect to them? A full concession or just half? Also, do you have any idea of any students from, if any other students are from Minneapolis? I assume that they are probably especially devastated as well. I'm thinking that a white student from there might possibly be even more devastated by this. Especially, some might think that if they're racist, even if they're not. His response was deemed racist by several students, who then formed a petition of over 20,000 signatures demanding his termination. He says he was attacked for being a white man and being woefully racist. And on June 5th, 3 days after the first email, he was suspended amidst a growing online campaign directed specifically to him. Around this time, he also received death threats and disparaging remarks about his Jewish heritage. So, it goes on and it says, when the story broke, over 76,000 people signed the petition to have him return, actually. And then less than 3 weeks after this whole thing blew up, he was reinstated. But the story is not over. The professor said he returned after 3 weeks, but allegedly he suffered great financial loss, severe emotional distress, trauma, and physical ailments. So he currently has a lawsuit filed against UCLA as a result of everything that he has gone through. So this was definitely a very, very interesting story with this particular professor and students requesting some leniency with grades as it relates to Black students who may have been affected by all of the racial injustice that was going on last year. First question I want to ask you guys is, do you think in situations like that, like for example with the George Floyd scenario, which definitely struck a nerve a lot of our people all across the country, should there be some type of leniency built in these institutions, be it work, be it school, to give people a breather and the ability to not have to perform at a certain level for a certain period of time?
Very good question. You want to go
Yeah, I
ahead
came
first?
up with that.
I like that. It's up to you. You want to go first, JD?
Yeah, I can.
ahead.
I don't. Everything. I think we live in an outrage culture right now. Everything is something for someone to feel outraged about. Big, small, major, indifferent. It's just, I mean, minuscule, whatever. It's a reason to be upset right now. The question of, has activism gone too far? Activism hasn't gone too far, but in this situation, I personally believe it did. This was too much. Everybody knows about the situation with George Floyd and how horrific it was. And this is in no way to disparage his family, to minimize what he went through, but because it happened, did not give me a reason to say, I'm not going to go to work today. This is so much happening right now. I'm just not going to do it. That to me wasn't a reason to do that. Some people may have taken the day off because they were so upset by it. I was very upset by it too, but I didn't feel that it was necessary for me to not fulfill my duties for the day. In this situation, I think that people are looking for any and every reason to be upset about something. People are looking to stoke the flames of racism left and right, and that's Black people, that's white people, that's every other color of people, on this planet. I think people are looking to stoke those flames, and I think people at that point in time, the flames were so high that they were looking for reasons to be upset. Anything could have been a reason to be upset. Also, anything could be a reason for them to not have to take a test that day. And I feel as though that wasn't a situation where you needed to say, oh, no, I can't perform my duties that day. I can't jump into somebody else's body. So I don't know how anybody else was feeling that day. I was feeling quite upset, pretty down, but that didn't give me a reason to not go to work that day. If anything, it motivated me to go to work that day and to be around when people have those questions and they ask, and it's in the news, you're going to get a chance to talk about it. So that's a day that you can use to educate people. Instead of running away from it, I think people need to embrace those types of things in those situations and look to run towards the issue and towards the problem, as opposed to running away from it. I'd like to think that there isn't really a reason to not take a test or not go to school or to not go to work that day. And like I said, I can't jump inside everybody else's body, but for me personally, no, I don't think that there's a reason for that. In certain cases, activism has gone too far. Everything is not a reason to raise hell for. Everything isn't. A lot of things are, but everything isn't.
Bring up some very good points, JD. As always, as usual. First of all, I want to say this about educators in general. Maybe not in this particular case, but educators. I feel like educators are undervalued. They're overworked and they're underpaid across the board. Unfortunately, educators are one of the most important factors in this world, period, especially when it comes to educating our babies, our children who are learning things for the first time and singing and doing things for the first time in their lives. Educators play a tremendous role in that. And I think here in America, particularly, we don't lift educators up in the way that they deserve, that they more than deserve, because a lot of educators are called to be not only educators, not only teachers and professors, but psychologists, mamas and daddies, peer mediators, they play so many different roles. And so I just want to take the time out to acknowledge that. Educators here on the Jump Off Live, we appreciate y'all. We lift y'all up, and we feel like you guys deserve much more. And hopefully in the future, the world will recognize that and salute that. And so going back to your question, Jeff. Oh, man. Wow. So I read this story, and I'm thinking to myself, because it seems like it's kind of one-sided. You hear the quotes from the professor,
Right.
It started off with the white student acknowledging, hey, this thing happened with George Floyd.
Mhm.
We should recognize it and honor that. We should do something for the black students. I respect that. I appreciate that. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for speaking up. And then you get this whole this whole paragraph of what the professor had to say and his perspective and his perspective only. It leads me to think and believe that there's much more to this story than what we really know. There's got to be much more to it. Like, does this professor have a history of grading African Americans in a negative way for the white student to even speak up? Shout out to all the white people and people, period, that are not black, that stand up for black rights, for one. We appreciate y'all. You are essential. We need that. Continue to do that. But man, it really makes me wonder, why this particular professor and why not anybody else? Does this professor have some type of history of downgrading or degrading black students? And so I would love to know more about this particular situation. And is something that's been ongoing, or was it just brought up in that day? And to answer your question, Jeff, I kind of feel the same way JD does, as far as not having or not creating a reason to not do something. If you think about it, especially in the society, in the world that we live in today, we can come up with 101 reasons for every situation on why we shouldn't do something, especially when it comes to doing some work. And so rest in peace, RIP to George Floyd, and shout out to all the people that love him, that care for him, that surrounded him, that believe in the people that even know him but know about his story. Shout out to them. But let's not use this or any other reason to not do what we need to do. I think at best they should have postponed the test. They shouldn't have had that test that day. They could have postponed it for somewhere down the line. But what you do for one person, you need to do for everybody in this particular situation. Postpone the test for everybody, not just black people, but everybody that day. And like JD said, take the time to reflect and educate people on what happened that day and what blacks have been fighting and kneeling for all this time.
Yeah, well said. I agree that something definitely needed to be done. I just caught a glimpse of Farsight's comment. He's still talking about Crystal K in the chat.
Oh,
shout
man.
out to Farsight. Yeah, shout out to Farsight. But
that's
yeah,
his view in his mind.
Yeah. He think about something else. Yeah, I do think that something should have been done. The point that I do understand as it relates to being more lenient towards the black students, that is a slippery slope, because I do understand that specifically singling out only the students of color, or I'm sorry, only the black students. It's interesting in situations like this, because I feel like whenever it comes to, there obviously race has been prevalent, all throughout the fabric of America, and then since George Floyd has been elevated, I feel like more than it ever has been, and people are starting to, I guess, handle us with kid gloves a little bit more, and kind of tiptoe around us and be more cognizant of what's going on. I just think that when situations like this happen, what needs to be focused on is not necessarily a pulling back of doing how can I say this? We don't need to necessarily have a pulling back of, okay, let's take this time, or let's negate these duties, be it work, schoolwork, regular work, or whatever the case may be. As opposed to that pulling back of those duties, we should be able to continue to thrive and complete those duties, but use that energy for actual to affect change. Because by postponing this test, or grading on the curve, or whatever the case may be, that's not going to ultimately help the movement. So something more powerful or impactful could have been done to help the movement. And I definitely agree with the fact that times like this, we need to come together, you know what I'm saying, and be more inclusive as opposed to divisive. So I would have loved, I think one of you I mentioned, I would have loved if the test or whatever was postponed for everybody, and something and the project came about regarding social justice or something like that, so everybody can be on the same page and do something to really affect change. I don't think that singling out the Black students and giving them a mulligan or a bye for the week was really going to big picture really help anything. You know what I'm saying? So I think this was an opportunity to do something even more impactful than letting a few students slide, and just to keep their grades as to wherever it was, for that particular part of the class. So yeah, I think I am very happy that we have so many. It seems like so many more vocal allies. And I shout out to the young generation, the young millennials and the Generation Zers, because I really feel like they're lockstep with us, marching with us. You can see it very prevalent all throughout the country. And I think that's really helping to make more change nowadays than just people of color doing it by themselves. But yeah, I don't think that was necessarily the right course of action to go ahead and you know be lenient in that respect. That could have been you. That's a teachable moment that could have been much more impactful had another decision been made. So yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
can you
thinking and talking at the same time. But yeah, hope that
yeah, I
makes
know.
sense.
I know. It's a deep sort of question.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about the topic in general, has activism gone too far? I think that to some degree it has. It has. Everybody doesn't have to be outraged and affected by everything at all times. I feel as though people at this point in time sort of to look to be affected and search out things that are going to affect them. um we talked about it on another story, or what everybody else is going to see in a few days, but we talked about another story where that dealt with social media, and how Facebook and stuff is in the news today about how they have algorithms in place that sort of tap into anger and tap into hate. And because of those things, because they know their product so well, they know that making people angry will drive up engagement, which in turn will drive up people viewing ads on Facebook, which in turn gets them more money. And that's one reason why. And I'm not one of those people who, you need to get rid of everything, because I don't think that's the case. But I don't really deal with Facebook too much. And I deal with it for the show. I deal with it to keep in contact with family, but I'm trying not to put my business out there a whole lot, only because I feel as though the more you read on there, the more that things will make you upset. And I say that to say, I hate when people say that. I say that to say, everything does not have to be a cause. Everything does not need a t-shirt. Everybody does not need a GoFundMe. Everybody does not need to have every thought that runs through their head posted. I just think that everybody is so caught up in being in everything. And I think activism is a victim of that as well. Like, before you know it, you're gonna have people out here protesting kitty litter, because the kitty litter is gray and it should be brown, so that it matches the poop and you're not able to see it. You know what I mean? Like, just stupid stuff. Stupid. Everybody has a reason to be outraged these days, and I think in turn, everybody is an activist. I can think of situations where people who I know were called out on Facebook for not being as strong of a proponent for black rights and Black Lives Matter. Like, called out, like flat out called out, like, you need to be doing more. Like, what? Like, it's one thing if you want to do the most, but don't put it out there and try to force other people to do the most. Like, I don't think that's where I feel like it's gone too far. Like, everything does not have to be a situation for activism, staging a walkout, calling up the media, getting them over here to come hear you talk about how you didn't wipe twice and you prefer to wipe 3 times. Like, everything is not a moment to stand on a soapbox for. And I think we need to pick and choose those moments, because when we do eventually stand up for those certain things, then you'll be heard. But if you're out there because, you know, everything that happened with George Floyd happened and you're trying to get out of a test for a day, like, I don't know if that's worthy enough. And I think, like everybody has said, that could have been used in a much different light. That could have been used in a much more positive way. Like, that, the idea, I think, I don't know who said it, which one of you guys said it, but to cancel classes, reconvene, and have a moment where you got, you know, everybody on campus is together and you plan a way to pay honor to George Floyd, or to discuss social change, and come up with ideas to how to make your campus more diverse. Like, that's what you do. That's a moment right there. Canceling your tests, I don't really jive with that.
Yeah. It's funny, JD, you know, just hearing you talk about this, it really takes away from the whole point. Like, how many times have we seen something like a George Floyd situation happen? And then in this particular case, you know, the attention is drawn towards this professor for him to change his grading scale for blacks. It kind of, when you think about it, it kind of starts to dilute the purpose of the day, you know. And then when there's these distractions that occur, we tend to even forget why we're even, you know, discussing this whole thing in the first place. All that attention, all that energy, they said 20,000 students signed a petition to have this guy removed. What was it over that? You know what I'm saying? This guy lost his livelihood. Now, granted, like I said before, I don't know if he had a history of that or what. I'm just going off what the article was saying and his viewpoint. But 20,000 people signed a petition to get him fired. What if those same 20,000 people stood up for equality in America? And not just for black people, but people of color, people of all different, you know, just think about it. You know, there was an attack on Asian Americans not too long ago, and I'm sure it's still going on. You know, what if those 20,000 people got together and just say, hey, let's stand up for human rights? You know what I'm saying? That would have honored George Floyd. What would he have been proud that professor got removed, or would he have been more proud had 20,000 plus people got together to stand up for human rights? I think that's an easy question to answer. And so I just wanted to bring that up, man. We often get distracted from the main point. You know, we need to keep the main thing the main thing. That's how we change what's important versus spend so much time and energy on the things that are not that important. So just want to share.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I think it's just, we just have to make sure that we place our use our energies in the best possible way. You know, we have to be strategic about how we use these moments to affect change. Just be more strategic about it. And then, like you said, JD, it's funny how when something happens, like nowadays, it's like when something happens, it automatically becomes diluted at the same time too. Like people jump on it, like something crazy happens, you know, and people jump on this bandwagon, and then all of a sudden it kind of becomes diluted, and then there's a whole bunch of subsectors of this.
Yeah.
Like for example, what happened with George Floyd was terrible, and it woke a lot of people up as to what was going on here. So people wanted to help out, to help affect change, to help to support the cause, etc. And then you have people saying, "Well, you ain't doing enough." Or you doing too much and all that stuff. And when that stuff happens, we lose sight of the goal. You know what I mean? We lose sight of the big picture. So we can't get obviously caught up in the weeds, um, as far as these things are concerned. We have to keep our to quote another old school term, keep your eyes on the prize and don't get caught up in the little mumbo jumbo that comes with that. So
Yeah.
shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Corey Ferguson, newer
Yes.
fan
Yes.
of
Yes.
the show,
Yes.
man.
Yes. I
Much
saw
respect to you, brother.
I saw Corey was commenting on our last episode that we spoke on spanking children
Mm-hmm.
and black emasculation. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, big shout out to him. I'm glad that he came through. I was like, man, you know, he has some very good viewpoints, and I think that would be great in the chat. And I asked him to come through, and he came through. So much love to him, man. But I wanted to go back real quick to my boy Sean Tyson. What's good, Sean?
What's good, Sean?
I know,
Good to
man.
see you, brother.
I know.
Hope you're reading that
But
new Stephen King book, Sean. Billy Summers. Sean's a Stephen King fan like myself. He was way
yep.
before I was, but go ahead. Sorry, I digress.
But he left this comment. He said, I feel you, JD, but could it be that people are fed up letting things slide and are now speaking on it all? I think that is a good point. I think people are fed up. And I think that there is a time and an opportunity and a place for people to speak up. I just think we need to pick and choose at certain points in times and find good ways of speaking up and speaking out. Like I feel like I can a lot of times when I talk on the show, I have to censor myself because I have all these different things that go through my head that I can share like personal stories about. But I know situations where you know, there different things come up. And like I can think of not my current employer, but a previous employer. You know, it was Black History Month, and not to be like you shouldn't talk about Black History Month, but if you're gonna give me the same 4 Martin Luther King quotes every year, you're not really doing too much for me at this point in time. Like, yeah, you're acknowledging Black History Month, and I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah, you got to slide on your morning in our morning meeting about Juneteenth, and you know, I appreciate you talking about it, but if you're not gonna go deeper than saying, yeah, you know, this is what Juneteenth is, presenting this information to everybody, and leaving it at that, like you leaving a real salty and bad taste in my mouth. And I just think it's not that it's not appreciated. I guess, you know, I guess you got to be happy with breadcrumbs sometimes because eventually you're going to get the whole slice. But I feel as though there needs to be more than just cursory attempts at, you know, at understanding these types of situations. And it dilutes it when you're just out there bringing it up because it's a talking point and because you feel like you have to. And that goes in the same vein as, you know, everybody being outraged about everything. Everything isn't outrage worthy. And I think people need to understand that. And when you're outraged about everything just turns into a low groan at all times. It's just like, my dad wouldn't yell at me a whole lot, but when he yelled, he got my attention. But if he was yelling all the time, I just drown him out. And I feel like sometimes we're yelling all the time, and we need to pick and choose a little bit better about when we need to yell and when we need to raise that voice.
Yeah, that's well said. I know sometimes we do become, as Black people, we become cynical when folks are, you know, attempting to cater to us and acknowledge certain things. And that's something I have to be mindful of too, because sometimes people do have pure intentions, but it comes across as just kind of being just kind of blanket, general statements and stuff like that. So it's tough, man. This race thing, this race debate, this race, this this racist past in America, the current system that we have, and having conversations and stuff like that. It's tough, but I think we just need to continue to have these conversations, and try to be as transparent as possible so we can learn how to talk to each other. Because I feel like a lot of people don't know how to talk to each other about race because it's so taboo and everything like that. So yeah, we have to just be open and honest in this communication, with people. Like for example, at your job, JD, maybe at your former job, maybe the management should have incorporated Black people into helping to create the presentation, maybe something like that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Add a little bit more flavor to it, put a little bit more sauce on it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I got another question then. So say this is your job, Jeff, or
Yeah.
your job, John. And you are asked to present on something like this. How do you feel about that? How would you feel about that? Would you feel okay with that? Would you take it on like, yeah, I'm glad to do that? Would you be like, oh, why do I have to do this? How do you feel? How would you feel about that?
Real quick, how do we work this timeout thing in our little chat here? How does that work?
I'll
Put
look
somebody
at
in
it. I'll
timeout.
take care of it.
Okay, cool. We may have to put somebody in timeout. Just check it. I'll have John. That'll be on John's go if we do a timeout. Just to make sure this chat stays, clean and pure. But to answer your question, JD, if I was asked, and it just depends upon how it was. If it comes from and if I can tell it's coming from a place of inclusion, and inclusivity, then I'll be more than happy to do it. And it just and it's I think people just need to have transparent conversations. I would love in my job for it to be like, okay, if this was a situation, okay, Jeff, we want to do something for Black History Month. We don't want this to come across as being, worded down and seen just through our lens. We want to make sure that we're more inclusive. So we want to have, Black people to help with this presentation so that we have some authenticity here as well too, as opposed to just presenting what our idea is of what should be displayed here at the office. So it just depends upon how it's proposed to me, if that makes sense.
Oh, good, man. I think, well, we all know knowledge is power. It's always been power, man. And I think, if I was in that position as an educator, I think it would be my duty to take a pause for the cause and educate, to the best of my ability, students and those who are around, um, on the history of this whole topic. Um, and the struggle, because as we know, as time has gone on, more and more of our past, of our history, of our true history, is being erased. It's being taken away out of school
Mhm.
curriculum, right? And that's on all levels, especially elementary, high school, and in college. And so, certain people, certain educators, and certain people have come together to keep that thing alive. I always see different articles where people are talking about, how Black history is being erased, in America. And so, what happened with George Floyd is history. It's a part of our history now. And believe it or not, it's not the first time that something like that has happened. It's not. It's just that there were so many eyes watching it at the time, so many people recording it at the time, that it was publicly broadcasted. It had to be talked about. It had to be presented to the world because so many people saw it. Let's think about all the people who have seen injustice or have been done wrong by police officers, and there were no cameras around. There were no witnesses around. You know, there's thousands of people that have been through that. And so I would consider it as an honor to and I would feel comfortable talking about it with other people and educating. And not only that, but getting their perspective as well, because a lot of times people hold in emotions and things, thoughts and feelings that they're having, especially involving something that serious. They never get a chance to talk about it. And they keep these emotions inside. And those emotions sometimes come out in different ways in their actions and their activities. And so it's because they never get a chance to express themselves. And so I definitely would, open the door to that conversation. And I would take it as an honor to be able to do that. And I think it would be productive. And it's an opportunity to educate, to be educated, and to continue the cycle of, spreading the knowledge and understanding of what's going on in today's time.
Each one teach one.
That's it.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on that one, fellas? I don't really have anything else to add. Like we
No, I don't either, man.
Yeah, and that's
I
a topic.
I was just gonna say I appreciate everybody's comments in the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Dealing with this, man. Like it's a tough topic to talk about because you don't want to tell people to not say anything, to not stand up, to not be an activist when it's necessary. But I just think that sometimes we have to pick and choose our causes. And if we pick and choose our causes and we have something that's truly a reason to be an activist for, then those are things that you should stand up for.
Yeah, it's really complex. I'm thinking about the comments that I made, and I'm thinking and talking at the same time, and it's just really hard to articulate how I really feel about it because some of the stuff is I don't know. some of it, what I'm saying. I'm trying to.
That's real.
I'm trying to express as much of an opinion that I do have, but some of the stuff I'm like, man, I don't know. It changes, depends on the day. All right, we have Jeff's quote of the week for the week to kind of break up the A block and the B block of the show. JD, are you able to display that quote of the week on the screen?
Yes, sir. Let me pull it up real quick.
The chat is good to go, JD. The chat clean. You sanitized
it's good to go. It's good to go.
Cool. You put that Windex in the chat.
Let me make a quick announcement before you give
sanitized it. Go ahead.
Educational, your knowledge filled quote. Folks, here on the Jump Off, we all about love, man. We all about supporting, uplifting, educating, doing positive things on this show. One thing we will not allow is, we open our discussion for people to express themselves and talk about, what we're talking about and give your insight and input. But at no point in time do we allow the belittling of anyone, especially when it comes to women that are in our chat. We won't allow it. It's not going to happen. I don't care who you are, how tough you feel behind the keyboard here to Jump Off Live. We don't play. And so when you step out of line, we'll handle it accordingly. And if you really foul, then we'll ask you not to come back and we'll block you for good. And so for those of you that are in the chat and you give insightful communication, man, continue to do that. We encourage that. We appreciate that. But we will not allow any negative energy or people to dilute our chat or to be toxic to anybody else within our chat. So with that, back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, you've been warned. All right, on to Jeff's quote of the week. What we got here? All right. So I peruse the interwebs, on a day-to-day basis. Those who know me know I love quotes, and they really help to keep me motivated. And I found one that I really liked by a author by the name of Candace Milliard. She says, and she actually put this on Twitter a while ago. She said, "My advice for what it's worth for success and happiness: compete with yourself and root for everybody else." And I really feel like this is it's obviously a really, really good quote in my opinion, but I think it's really apropos of our current society, because I feel like a lot of people are in competition with each other. And when I say apropos, I mean we need to abide by it more, because that's not what's going on right now. So I feel like a lot of people are in competition with each other, and not spending enough time on, self development, being the best um, person that they can be. And I feel like when you really focus on yourself and you continue to challenge yourself to be a better version of yourself, while at the same time cheering others on and supporting others, I feel like that's really a win-win situation. You don't fall victim to envy, keeping up with the Joneses, and what somebody else is doing and stuff like that. If you can really, really root for everybody else, um, but at the same time continue to step up your game based upon your own expectations, I just think that makes for a well-rounded um, human being. So what are you guys' initial thoughts on this quote?
Man, I love it. I love that this is a part of our show and we can bring a little bit of positivity to the atmosphere. I feel like there's so much negativity rolling around there. There's so much that it's so and it's so easy to find it. It's simple to find negativity. It's really simple to find it. All you got to do is, pick your phone up, watch TV, whatever, and you can find any type of negativity that you want. But the instances where you find positivity are a lot harder to find a lot of times, and a lot fewer and farther between. And I think the root of this quote, and talking about competing with yourself and rooting for everyone else, I think a lot of times the competitive nature in people, and also the competitive nature of the business world, is there at all times. And it's real easy to hate on someone's success. It's really easy to do that,
Mm-hmm.
because at the root of that is a feeling of inadequacy in yourself. So you solve that inadequacy by reading the first part of that quote, which is competing with yourself, bettering yourself, making a better you the goal, as opposed to someone else's goal that you're aspiring towards. Um, and yeah, if you can root for other people to be successful, I think you should. Um, Sometimes that can be difficult. That can be. Nobody on this panel tonight is perfect. I can't say that I don't hate on people sometimes, but I try to keep those moments brief, and I try to think about things like this, and change that thought to, man, why am I hating? I need to get myself better so that I can get into that situation. And a lot of times I feel as though when you have those negative thoughts, and we spoke about this multiple times in private. I don't know if we've ever really talked about it on the show, but when you have those negative thoughts rolling around in your head constantly, those negative thoughts manifest themselves around you constantly. And if you continue to have those negative thoughts, negative things will be drawn towards you, negative things will manifest themselves in your life. But as powerful as those negative thoughts are, the inverse is just as powerful. And I've learned that single-handedly multiple times over the last few years, that if you can somehow have a negative situation and turn it into a positive, you can also continue to think positively about things, speak positive things into existence. That stuff is real. And as much as people might say, it's whatever, you just talking about whatever. Yeah, if you think that I'm saying whatever, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's a
not going to work
self-fulfilling
for you.
prophecy, no matter how you slice it.
Exactly. Everything is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that, you won't have things that don't go your way, or you won't have things not go your way. Like that's just part of life. But you don't want to be the determining factor in those things not going the way that you
Mhm.
want them to go, because you're bringing that negative energy towards yourself. And like I said, this is something that it took a while to get to this point, and a lot of self-development and self-growth, and a lot of time to myself and thinking on things myself, and realizing that, yeah, you need to get those negative things out of your life. You need to surround yourself with positivity at all times. Because if you're wondering why you're stuck in a rut, after you look at yourself, look at everything around you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got things around you that are bringing you down, man, get them out your life. Whatever they may be, get them out your life, because you might go through some hardships while you're getting them out, but it's going to be brighter once you turn around that corner. So, yeah, I love this segment. I love this quote.
Facts.
Wow.
Jeff, man, shout out to you, Jeff. You always bring, and this on and off the stage, you always bring, for one, a positive energy, but the quotes that you find in its simplicity is just profound and beautiful, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing with us, man. Competition. A lot of people don't realize their greatest competition is self. Self, that person in the mirror, not anybody else. It's yourself. And once you realize that your greatest competition is yourself, you can truly do something about that and it be effective. Because I promise you, the energy that you spend building yourself up is much more valuable than the energy you would spend on hating and competing against others. Our greatest competitor is ourselves. And unfortunately, we live in a world where recognition, babies cry for it, grown men die for it. We want to be recognized by somebody or somebody's. And a lot of times, people in their warped way of thinking, and it could be subconscious, they will think negatively and talk negatively about others instead of just focusing on themselves, man. When you focus on yourself and you realize and you define what it is that you want, what it is you need to improve on, what you need to do in order to do that, and then you work towards that, man, you will be so much more successful. Not only that, you will appreciate the outcome of the hard work and diligence that you apply towards yourself to obtain whatever goal or goals that you want to achieve. The outcome of that is much greater than the energy that you spend on competing and thinking about in a negative way towards somebody else. Man, once I learned to, and actually it was already in me, but once I realized and just reminded myself of the philosophy to simply acknowledge and be happy for the success of others as though it is my own, man, that took me to a whole nother level of success. Because just like Jeff and JD just mentioned, we kind of, as you guys can tell, we really think a lot. Like we gel. I've been knowing these brothers since we was kids. So it's a reason why we're friends, brothers, you know what I'm saying? Because we think alike and we uplift and push each other and our families, and we pray for each other and those things. And so when any of these two brothers succeed and they share that with me, I feel like I've succeeded. I feel that same level of success and accomplishment as they do. That's how close I am to them. And I feel good. Even if I didn't have like a physical hand in it, I feel good because I feel that they are a part of me. Once you have that relationship, once you build that relationship, and once you have that simple mentality about people in general, man, I promise you, you'll be a happier person. You'll feel more fulfilled and you'll accomplish more. And not only that, but you'll put that energy out into the universe and attract it back to you. And so, man, great quote, bro. Appreciate you.
Thank you, bro. You all did a great job of responding to that and, and adding your thoughts. I really appreciate that. That uplifted me. I feel I feel even better after hearing that. Most definitely. So yeah, you'll be getting quotes from me every now and again. I'll throw something out there. You know what I'm saying? Whenever we don't have a sponsor that we're trying to help with the business, you know what I'm saying? Whenever we don't have that, I'll come through with a quote. So
I mean, you need to contact the person you got that quote from so that they can pay us a little bit right now.
No, right? We ain't in on that quote.
I'll let Candace, huh? I'll let Candace.
Hey, yo, Candace. Yo,
right. I did tag her in the post on Instagram, so we'll see if she you know what I'm saying. We'll see what she do with that.
We need to clip this and send it to her.
Yeah. All right. Johnny Dangerous.
Yes, sir. As we
what you
move
got for us?
right along.
Yeah.
JD, I don't know if you happen to have it. Can you post a picture of what we
Yep. Give me a second.
to talk about here? We fixing to talk about a little something.
You say fixing?
We fixing.
That's better than finna
Oh my gosh, man.
or the legendary Finsta.
If you say Finsta,
We fixing. Yeah,
Finsta.
we fixing fixing fix. All right, folks. As I get into this here, just putting up a picture just to give you guys more of a visual of what we're actually discussing right now. Transgender fighter Alana Mclaughlin wins MMA debut. I want visuals just work well. They've worked well since pre-kindergarten all the way up until adulthood. And so if we can just pull up this picture, because I want everybody to see exactly what we're talking about here. Alana Mclaughlin, the second openly transgender woman to compete in MMA in the United States, won her debut Friday night via submission at the Combat Global prelims in Miami, Florida. The 38-year-old used a rear naked choke. Anybody that's about MMA, I love MMA. I know JD and Jeff like it as well. The 38-year-old used a rear naked choke against Celine Provost to end the match 3 minutes and 32 seconds into the second round. McLaughlin, who began her gender transition after leaving the U.S. Army Special Forces in 2010, said she hopes to be a pioneer for transgender athletes and combat sports. And I quote, "I want to pick up the mantle that Fallon put down," McLaughlin told Outsports before the fight, referring to Fallon Fox, who in 2012 became the first transgender woman to fight in MMA. "Right now, I'm following in Fallon's footsteps. I'm just another step along the way, and it's my great hope that there are more to follow behind me." Do we have that? There we go, right there. That's Alana Mclaughlin, guys, winning her debut Friday night submission using rear naked choke. Man, shout out to JR. JR in the chat actually sent this to us, and I thought immediately it was something that would be great to discuss here in our chat, because we know that a lot of people have their opinions about transgenders, and particularly transgenders in sports. First of all, I want to make it known here on the Jump Off, we don't discriminate against anybody. You have the right to transgender or change your sex or be whoever or represent whatever you choose to. This is a free world, and you have that right. And so we don't degrade Alana for becoming, a woman. But I thought particularly Alana becoming a woman in the MMA arena and fighting as a woman when Alana is actually a transgender. Okay, so with that being said, fellas, I'm gonna go to you guys first. Fellas, do you feel that it's fair? I'm gonna keep it as simple. Do you feel it's fair for a person that used to be a man, that was born a man and decides to become a woman, to compete in legitimized sports as a woman? Is it fair?
Man.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I quote James. It's definitely a touchy subject. What I worry about is a level playing field. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not an expert, proclaim to be an expert of the science behind all of this. Again, much love to everybody out there, no matter what, race, gender, whatever you are, ethnicity, whatever background you have. Everybody has obviously a freedom of choice to do that. One thing that I would always want to advocate for is just a level playing field. So I don't know. I mean, at face value, when typically when we look at things like this, we see a person who was a male transition to a female, fighting other females right now. And the first thing pops into my mind is that, is this going to be a level playing field? Does Alana, now being identified as a woman, still have certain not traits, but certain abilities that lean towards the gender that she was at birth. You know what I mean? So that will give her an unfair advantage with fighting MMA. If it's a situation where there is an unfair advantage due to the fact that Alana is transgender, then I don't think that that's fair, because I think that can lead to um, even worse injuries for her female opponents. And then again, the any wins would have an asterisk next to them, in my opinion, because again, it's not an even playing field. Now, the question is, how do you measure that? Like, in that, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Do you measure the amount of, and I'm just spitballing here. Do you measure the amount of testosterone that somebody has in their system, or certain chemical components, whatever the case may be, to determine, what's fair and what's not? That's just really hard to say. Because it's one thing for someone to live the authentic truth in life, walking down the street day to day, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to competition like this, which in this particular sport, people can literally get killed, you know what I'm saying, doing this, or have detrimental injuries. I think that every precaution needs to be taken to make sure that it is a level playing field. I don't know how to go about doing that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not an expert in the science behind all of this, but yeah, that particular point of it needs to be addressed. That would be more of a concern of mine. I don't care about the gender aspect of it per se. I just want to make sure that it's even. It's a level playing field.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When you talk about MMA and just specifically mixed martial arts, this is about as physical of a sport, of a combat sport, as you can get. It's not a situation where it is a overtly finesse sport. It is a sport that is based on strength and power, even more so than skill at certain points in times. The people who are legendary are able to combine both of those things. But I know, just, participating, or not actively participating, but watching a lot of amateur MMA and professional MMA, and being in that scene, I know a lot of people who didn't have the skill but had the power to overwhelm their opponents and rack up victory after victory after victory, just because of their power and their physical advantage over that person. So in turn, when you look at this situation, I'm just speaking on this situation alone. I can make global comments later, but just specifically this situation alone with Alana. This is not only someone who was born a man, this is someone who was involved in the military, and not only in the military, but a part of special forces in the military. So this is the elite of the elite. And for this person to compete against women, and in no way to degrade a woman, but a woman is not going to be as strong physically as a man, and pretty much any man. But then to go against someone who is an elite male athlete, physical specimen, someone who has been trained to hurt people, I can't rock with that. I can't feel comfortable with that. Like, I look at that situation and think, man, like, if this was my daughter who was going against, Alana, I would be scared. I would be scared for her. If Alana was my daughter, I wouldn't want her to compete. I would tell her the same thing. I would feel like, you know what? Like, you can be equal in almost any other situation. But when it comes to physical competition, I don't think that I think that you have an unfair advantage in those situations. And this is in no way to degrade Alana at all, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. And I think once you get into those situations and you have someone who is, physically bigger, stronger than their opponent, that's too much of an advantage. Like we even see women who are in sports, especially in MMA. Like I think about Chris Cyborg, who is someone who is, she's Brazilian. She is 100% a woman, but she is a strong, big woman. And to see the way she manhandled many of her opponents early on in her career, like it's not as much now, especially since she's pretty much retired now, but just to see how she physically dominated her opponents, and she's 100% female. To think that that advantage can be translated to an actual male competing against a female, I can't sanction that. I would love to hear the people who believe it's okay, and not in any way throwing shade at them or anything like that. I just want to hear the argument for, just so that I can understand and get that other point of view.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, definitely, man. As always, guys, great points. I love the angles that both of you guys came from. I have been a fan of MMA since I was a kid, the UFC fighting, when there really weren't many rules at all other than no eye gouging. You can do everything else. You can headbutt, you can punch in the groin. There was no weight classes. I was around watching UFC and MMA fighting when the Gracies, when Hoist Gracie roamed the stage. Pat Shamrock and Ken Shamrock and Dan the Beast. All them guys were MMA fighters, man, and they didn't have all these different rules and whatnot. And I'm glad that UFC has continued on and they have all these rules in place now to protect fighters. I also believe in equality and fighting for equal rights. I do believe in those things, but let's look at some statistics. In terms of absolute strength, this is from scholar.princeton.edu. In terms of absolute strength, that is, without regard for body size, weight, or composition, the average man tends to be considerably stronger than the average woman. Specifically, the absolute total body strength of women has been reported as being roughly 67% that of men. Kind of let that sink in a little bit, folks. Like JD said, we'd love to hear from those of you in the chat, period, but particularly those who feel like this is okay. Having served in the military, not as special forces, but as security forces. And shout out to a lot of women in the military. There's some tough females in the military. There's some tough females in life. And I'm familiar with Cyborg too. She's a beast, to say the least. But as a transgender man to a woman, Alana, having that much experience, as JD stated before, having served in the military, having trained in pre-combat, and then to go into the MMA and use some of those same tactics, in addition to what you learn as a seasoned MMA fighter. And I know this was Alana's debut. I don't know what it's like to be transgender. I don't know what it's like to be a man trapped or a woman trapped in a man's body, or a man trapped in a woman's body. I don't know what that's like. So I can't really speak on that. It is a touchy situation. But to go from a man and transform into a woman, and then to fight in a sport as a woman, man, you have a significant edge over women. Me personally, as a man, knowing that I have the training that I had, if I was in Alana's position, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting knees on a woman, period. Now, I don't know what it's like, once again, to be, a woman trapped in a man's body, so I can't relate to that, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable. I'm looking at Alana's bicep, Alana's body size, Alana's chin strength compared to, the young lady that she fought against, man. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I don't think I just don't think it's fair, man. It's not. I know life isn't fair, but this is something that the scales can be weighed out in this one. I just don't feel like it's fair. And if it was me in that situation, if I could relate at all, I don't think I would feel right battling in a female's field. Now, if Lana, you know, became a transgender and continued to fight in the men's division, man, shout out, because here it is. A woman, statistically speaking, has 67% of the general male strength. And so, it just goes back to leveling the scales and make things fair. But at the same time, we want to give everybody the right to express themselves, to be themselves. But man, at some point we do have to draw the line. And I don't think I don't feel right about a man fighting a woman in a sport or any kind of arena, so to speak.
So is it only physical sports that you feel this way? Because I'm thinking, like, what if there was a female who transitioned to being a male and wanted to participate in like male gymnastics or something like that, or male figure skating?
That's a good
How with her inherent flexibility, which is usually, the average woman is probably more flexible than a guy, would the same sort of, would you feel the same way in that sort of situation? Also, one thing that I don't think we're thinking about as much either is, the a lot of times people who, as they transition, they take estrogen or
hormones.
testosterone and
Mm-hmm.
hormones to make them feel physically like the opposite sex, or the sex that they are transitioning to. So that's just another consideration that I thought of. But
No, I like that question. And what comes to mind at first as I think about it, I think it would be, cool. 'Cause once again, people have the right to do what they feel as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. But why not create an arena where transgenders can battle each other as they see fit? You know, because even though Alana had the right to become Alana, um, the young lady that she's fighting or fought, she should have the right to be able to fight against another woman. You know what I'm saying? So why not create a field where transgenders can choose if they like to battle each other? What do you guys think about that?
I think that has some it makes sense on some levels. When JD was saying, I was thinking about it as well too. If it's a woman transitioning to a man and fighting men in the in the UFC, that's another conundrum that
Yeah.
that I would see as well too. Where
yeah,
just
how do you feel on that?
I think
How would
that's
you feel on that?
I think that would be another unfair advantage again. You know what I'm
Or
saying?
unfair disadvantage in that
Yeah,
situation?
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, unfair disadvantage in that situation. I think with
But
with
if it's a disadvantage, is that, like, is it okay to be at a disadvantage and want to compete, as opposed to being in an advantage and wanting to compete?
what I was saying originally is I think it needs to be a level playing field, not skill wise, but a level playing field in general. So that goes for advantage and disadvantage. I don't think one is okay versus another being okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not like, yeah, if you're a woman going to a man, transitioning to a man, and you know, then and you bold enough to go do that, then go ahead and do it. Throw them to the wolves. No, I don't think about it from that perspective. The conversation that's going on right now with transgender people and that's in the forefront right now, conversations that they are evolving, they continue to be had. I think this is one of those things where things are evolving in real time, and it will have to be figured out because this is like a slippery slope that our world, there's been transgender people for a number of years. However, when it comes to competitions and these types of things, it hasn't been dealt with before. So yeah, there has to continue to be lots of conversations, and I really want to um, know and hope that as part of these conversations, there's some science behind it too. You know what I mean? To kind of dictate and to determine what's considered fair and equitable versus what's not considered fair and equitable. And I just break it down to, and this is kind of black and white, but if it's a situation where there's unfair advantages or disadvantages that can cause folks to get injured, I'm not for that. But if there are competitions, if you throw in darts or if you you know what I'm saying, whatever the case may be, I don't really have any issue with men versus women in those competitions, or transgender people in the mix somewhere as well too. I would actually like to see more of that stuff where it's the non-combat sports where people of different genders are actually competing against each other, because
For
I think
sure.
that actually be a pretty cool thing that we don't see often enough. Bowling, whatever the case may be, you know what I'm saying? So yeah,
For
it's a
sure,
slippery
man.
slope, man.
It is. It is. And a lot of people feel, different ways, and people may be offended as well by, the way someone would express how they feel about it. And once again, no disrespect to anyone. And you have the right to, you know, uh, do what you feel is best for you. And that's the beautiful thing about America in particular, that you have rights, and everybody should have some rights. But going back to JD's original question, um, when I had answered that, there should be a field created if there's enough transgenders that would like to just have their own class where they compete against each other. Because when you look at, and James brought this up, who's on the show uh, the other week. Glad to have you on, James. James has been a consistent member of Team Jump Off, so we appreciate you, man. Um, I wrestled in high school as well, and every now and then we would see a female competitor wrestle up against one person on our team, and I always was hoping that it wasn't a female that was wrestling against me at 152, because I didn't want to get beat by her. But there's a lot of guys who feel a certain type of way in physically competing against a woman, especially when it comes to like some type of combat sport, whether it be MMA, wrestling, boxing, or anything like that. Um, as a man, particularly speaking for me, I was raised a certain way, not to put hands on women. Period. You know what I'm saying? Not in an aggressive manner, or not in a combative manner, should I say? And so even in the sports arena, it just psychologically for a lot of men, and some people may say, "Oh, just deal with your emotions, get your mind right then." But psychologically, for a lot of men in that situation, for women who want to battle in MMA against men, it just wouldn't be right. It wouldn't feel right. You wouldn't even approach the situation the same. You have to recondition. The hardest thing to do is unlearn and relearn. You have, as a man, you have to recondition your mind. As a man who believes in not putting his hands on a woman in that fashion, you have to recondition your mind to say it's okay for me to battle against this woman, even though I'm a man, even though scientifically I'm stronger, or I may be faster or whatever, I'm bigger. It's okay for me to do the same thing to this woman that I would do to a man. And so it's a slippery slope. And that's why I believe, creating a whole nother lane with the same type of facets, the same type of rules, will give folks an opportunity to fight fairly on a balanced scale.
You know what, too, John? I'll take what you said sort of a step further, in that I question Alana's motives in doing this.
Come on, let me hear.
And if you have this advantage, that you are physically stronger and an elite level athlete. What, and this is in no way to be disrespectful, but what is going through your head when you say, yeah, I want to fight a woman, I want to fight and compete against a woman? Like, what's going through her head to say that that's okay? Like you said, you
I
have to
think it's her.
recondition.
It's her saying, "I'm a woman now. Women are my equal, so I want to go fight a woman."
So is that like aspirational? Like, I aspire to be equal, so therefore I'm gonna compete equally against a woman. Like that. I feel like those are two huge leaps that you have to make mentally in order to do that. Even in a lot of non physical sports, like tennis, for instance, if you had someone who was a skilled male tennis player that decided to transition to being a woman and they still competed and then would compete against women, I don't view that as being fair either. Like, there's no actual physical danger, but it's still a physical sport. Or if you have a male athlete that transitions to being a female and decides to
Baseball,
it's softball, yeah, or jump into the WNBA for whatever reason,
right?
Like, they are instantly going to be at the top level athletically in that sport, and to feel that that's fair, that's difficult. That the mental gymnastics that you would have to make in order to believe that that's fair is tough for me. Maybe they can reconcile it in their minds. I can't speak for them, but I just have trouble understanding why you would feel it's okay. And for Alana, knowing everything that she did as a male, and then to say, I'm gonna fight this woman, that's hard for me.
Yeah,
That's
the only
really
thing I can
difficult
think
for me.
of, and I obviously I'm not transgender, but the only thing I can think of is when they make that transition, it's not like it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
they made the transition. She's now a woman. That's her mindset. There's no turning back. That's what she is. No matter what. So, you know what I'm saying? I think that, at least in my opinion, some transgender people think like that. Like, this is what I am now. Forget who I was in the past. I'm a woman through and through, and I'm going to operate accordingly.
Yeah,
So,
I hear that. Let's paint the picture even more clear. If Mike Tyson in his prime
oh my God,
decided to become a woman,
suffering fuckatash.
oh man, if Mike Tyson decided to become a woman, first of all, what would he look like, right?
Oh my gosh, Wanda from Living Color.
I know.
Stop talking about that man in a dress.
Oh my goodness.
Hey Mike,
Was Wanda Jamie Foxx emasculating himself? No, go ahead.
Hey Mike,
Well,
hey, you ever watch this? I don't want no smoke with you,
Not
man.
at
I
all.
respect you. Just using you as being the greatest example in this scenario. If you decided to become transgender and became a woman in your prime, and you continue to be a boxer, but in the women's league, dude, come on, picture that, folks. If Ray Lewis in his prime as a linebacker, what's the league of women right now to do the lingerie football?
Oh
Contest?
yeah.
Lingerie football league. Yeah.
Lingerie football league. There it is. First of all, we don't want to see Ray Lewis in no lingerie, but and no lingerie. But if Ray Lewis decided to become a woman in his prime and continue to be a linebacker, he would kill some folks. Just think of it in that manner, man. And when you talk about the motives behind Alana with the skill that Alana has, that particular set of skills we were talking about earlier, and applying that in MMA, man, it's just, and I'm sure a lot of women in MMA haven't spoke with them, but I'm sure they feel that they are at a disadvantage going against Alana. There's probably a few that want to fight her, like Cyborg. I can see Cyborg wanting to fight.
Like, bring it on.
Right.
It's a new challenge.
Right. But other women are like, nah, man, that ain't right. That ain't right. You know. So.
Yeah. At the very least, I mean, the rule books are going to have to be updated. You know what I'm saying? And it's, I mean, it's definitely going to expand our mind, expand our consciousness as to really figure out how to incorporate this emerging sector of folks that we have in our in the world. So yeah, you gotta have those tough conversations and figure this stuff out, man. Figure it out. I just don't want people to be getting unjustly hurt in the process, but
yeah, how many women gonna have to get knocked out before they change the rule?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is.
All right, I think we've exhausted those topics tonight, fellas. What y'all think?
Yeah.
Real quick. reading this comment from Katie Jo, I feel she would carry her knowledge of fighting that she knew prior, and that could be an advantage, but hormone replacement meds should have lessened her physical build. I think that might be the case after some time, but if you look, I mean, I don't understand the weight classes in this, because obviously just looking at the picture, Alana looks like she weighs a solid 30 pounds more than the women that she's going against. And I know that I don't know if, I would love to see a picture of her at weigh-ins and what Alana looked like then, because maybe she was drained, completely. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that woman there might be 125, maybe, yeah, probably about 125. But yeah, I couldn't imagine what Alana looked like if she had to get down to that weight in order to compete. So I wonder if this was like a open class sort of thing, like, because amateur MMA is completely different from what you see on UFC. UFC has very strict weight classes, rules, but a lot of times, a lot of amateur fights, almost anything goes. So you can have a situation where you have what they call a open weight challenge, where you just have somebody who might be 60 pounds heavier competing against someone else, just because they both agreed to fight. So I'm wondering if this is that type of situation, because if you have to do that, that may be the only way to even things out. Because if you have a guy who's competing at 125 and a woman who's competing at 125, that guy who may walk around at 140 is going to have to get all the way down to 125, and that's going to be ridiculously difficult for him to do. But if he's able to do it, he can then bounce back up to 140, 145 by the time the fight actually starts, and then all that advantage is back. So like, I really enjoyed this conversation, because there's so many different layers and levels to this that I hadn't thought about before we even started this discussion. So I would love to hear what everybody has to say in the comments on this after this show posts.
For sure. And shout out again to JR for sending us this particular post. And folks, all our Jump Off viewers and fans, feel free to inbox us. Send us some stories that you think would be interesting for us to discuss here on an open forum, like we did tonight. We are open-minded here. Once again, as a reminder, we're all about uplifting. We joke, we have fun, we kick back, we laugh, we play. We compete against each other, I guess, in a comical type of way. But one thing we do not do or will not tolerate is the disrespect of each other, and especially our queens on the show. And I just want to remind folks again, if you do that, you will be set out, set aside, dismissed, and dismantled from the Jump Off Live, because we represent something much higher than those low comments or standards that some may think they can come on and display. I just want to remind y'all of that. But we appreciate everybody for commenting in the chats tonight. We appreciate all the conversations, the different thoughts and mentalities and suggestions. Continue to do that. We love that. We thrive off that. We appreciate that. Thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Like I said before, you've been warned. There was a lot of uplifting in that part in that speech he just gave, but there was some direct threats in there too.
I'm a nice guy, man.
Just keep that in mind, folks, as you delve back into the chat in the coming weeks. Oh man. As always, be sure to like and subscribe. And we Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this time. I mean, at the currently, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We always gonna have some content for you all. So make sure you keep checking back, turn on those notifications so you're always aware of when we have new content dropping, new content for your head tops. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any final words, fellas?
No, thank you to everybody for rocking with us. Dave, we miss you, bro. Get back on the show once everything settles down for you. But yeah, it's cool for three of us to ride together, but we always need that fourth, man. So we can't wait for you to get back, bro.
Definitely. We will see you all on Friday. Peace and love.
Peace out, y'all.